Hello, everyone. Welcome to another edition of Dr. G podcast, where we analyze everything objectively without any form of spin. Please don't forget to smash the subscribe button and smash the notification button so that when we release new videos, you'll be the first to be notified. Let's get into it. Recent findings of the UN Commission of Inquiry describe the events happening in Gaza as genocide. This highlights the need for urgent reform of the UN Security Council. The post-World War II outdated composition of the UN Security Council has repeatedly shown that the UN can be paralyzed, as it was evident during the Gaza ceasefire resolution vote that took place at the UN Security Council and was blocked by the United States. /2025/583. Please raise their hand. Those against. The draft resolution has not been adopted, owing to the negative vote of a permanent member of the Council, which further highlights the urgent need for the reform of the UN Security Council. Leaders across the globe during the UN General Assembly meeting strongly advocated for the reform of the UN Security Council and the UN in general. Leaders like Alex Stubb made strong recommendations on how the Security Council should be reformed.
Ladies and gentlemen, the composition of the UN still largely reflects the world of 1945. As the world has changed drastically, so should the decision-making at the UN. Last year, in this very hall, I argued for a reformed Security Council, a council where currently underrepresented regions would have a stronger voice through permanent seats at the table. The number of permanent members should be increased in the UN Security Council. At least there should be 2 new seats for Asia, 2 for Africa, and 1 for Latin America. I think I'm going to say this every year because it's the only place where I get applause. No single state should have a veto power. And if a member of the Security Council violates the UN Charter, its voting rights should be suspended. I believe that these changes at the top of the UN are necessary in order to maintain the UN's central role in international relations.
Similarly, the President of Kenya also strongly emphasized that in 2025 it is unacceptable that Africa, with 54 countries and representing over 1 billion people, has zero permanent member of the UN Security Council. Take a listen to him.
The Security Council remains frozen in the post-war structures of 1945, unable to act inclusively, with fairness and with speed. For 2 decades, Africa has spoken in one voice, demanding justice, equity, and representation in the highest organ of global governance. This demand, however, continues to be ignored, deferred, or endlessly debated to the detriment of both Africa and the legitimacy of the United Nations itself. You cannot claim to be the United Nations while disregarding the voice of 54 nations. It is not possible. Africa is no longer willing to wait on the margins of global governance while decisions about peace, security, and development are made without our understanding, without our perspectives, and without our voice. Africa's exclusion is not only unacceptable, unfair, and grossly unjust, it also undermines the very credibility of the United Nations, this organization. Africa dominates most of the Security Council agenda, provides some of the largest contingents of UN peacekeeping forces, and bears the heaviest costs of instability. Yet we remain the only continent without a permanent seat at the main table where decisions about our destiny are made. Africa deserves, ladies and gentlemen, at the very least, 2 permanent seats with full rights, including the right to veto, and 2 additional non-permanent seats on the United Nations Security Council.
The Singaporean representative also made similar arguments on the need to reform the UN Security Council so that it can be representative of current realities. Take a listen to him.
UN needs to reform to be fit for purpose for the next stretch. We need a more representative and a more inclusive UN that reflects current realities. The UN Charter confers on the UN Security Council the primary responsibility for the maintenance of international peace and security. It clearly needs reform to better fulfill this mandate. The increasing, and if I may add, cynical use of vetoes by the P5 must be constrained, and the wider UN membership must reach agreement on how this veto is to be exercised in the future. We commend the role played by the elected members of the Council, which gives the wider membership of the UN greater agency in addressing the pressing issues of the day. We also believe it is important to strengthen the relationship between the Security Council and the General Assembly.
And the message is clear from Europe to Africa to Asia. Reform the UN Security Council so that it can reflect today's global realities or risk becoming irrelevant. It can no longer be business as usual. Status quo is no longer acceptable. The UN must be reformed to reflect current realities and be more representatives. Please don't forget to subscribe to and share and comment so that we can reach 10,000 subscribers before the end of the year. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye now.